What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to Gnompton. In the previous episode, we had left off working on our blacksmithing program, and so I think that's where we're going to continue this episode, just taking a look around. So let's go ahead and recap what we've been working on. In the previous episode, we had our forge working on a copper anvil. We're going to have to make 5 or 6 of these little buggers. In fact, I think we're going to need 3 more minimum, and so it's going to take a while. Setting up your first foundry is really kind of one of those major endeavors because you neither have the workforce nor do you have the raw materials to get it done in any sort of timely manner. And yet at the same time, you have to get it done because the enemies are coming. I mean, obviously we're way ahead of the curve right now with regards to how hard the enemy's going to be. And as long as you take it a little bit slow with regards to the way that you choose to design your kingdom, for example, don't start like making the walls out of copper bricks this early in the game because it will come back to bite you in the ass. You'll end up with enemies that are way too strong for you. And so I tend to be very, very slow. At the end of my first year, let's take a look at our kingdom worth right now. We're sitting at 5,000. At the end of my first year, I don't tend to be much higher than like 10 to 12,000, just because that's the point at which, I forget, the 12,000, 16,000 mark is like the hard counter for something, or I'm sorry, the hard boundary for something. I don't remember what. I think it's like, it might be goblins in armor or something like that, which is something that just we have no means to field right now. It's just not something we can accomplish. And so with 2 guys working, it looks like they're starting to move some of our bandages over, which is a really, really good thing because that puts the bandages right there on the battlefield. So if you get the boo-boos on the battlefield, you can quickly just swab those mothers on there and you'll be good to go in the field of Gnomptons, because much like Johnson & Johnson, there's no tears here in Gnompton. There's no crying. You get back out there and you punch a goblin in the throat, man. That's what we hired you to do. That is why you are in our society, to die for the Commonwealth. Now then, our yaks should get back to breeding pretty soon. I think we've got like another season. And the thing with the yak field, so I wanted to talk about this briefly because I don't think this is something that I had touched on. I had butchered a yak in the previous episode, and people are probably like, alright, so you butchered a yak. What's the reasoning behind butchering the yak? Well, butchering the yak has a reason in the early game of getting you a bone needle, which was the means by which we're going to make our bandages. However, it also served us in another way. Let me take a look and see if I can find the proper menu here. There it is. And so it's going to tell you males and females. You never want to let the males live. Always butcher the males. You want to have a field presumably with 1 male and like 5 females, because we can have 6 animals in here. We want to have a ton of females at a time so that we can impregnate more of them so that we end up with more offspring, which we can then butcher even faster. So this is going to be an alternate method by which we can get food as well, and also a ton of leather. Now normally I'm not going to make leather armor. Leather armor along with bone armor is pretty pointless. You pretty much just want to leapfrog it. Copper armor, if they ever make the early game more difficult, might be something to work towards simply to guard yourself from getting punched in the throat. But because leather and bone don't come with a throat guard, or a gorget I think is what it's called, you don't really want to build those because getting punched in the throat is pretty much 90% of your deaths in the early game when the goblins are unarmed. It's almost always going to be one of your gnomes getting punched in the throat. So you really do want to give them chest pieces as soon as possible. Now if they ever ramp up the difficulty, copper armor might be worth it, but as it stands right now, copper armor is neither cost effective to make nor worth it. You can get to bronze much quicker, and the bronze will benefit you much more in the long term because bronze will last you a huge chunk of the game. I mean, bronze armor will last until the point where it'll last you well beyond mants, which are going to be the next tangible threat which comes after goblins. And so, beyond that, bronze, I think, just has a better longevity by comparison to copper, where copper is going to be obsolete very quickly. Mants are going to go through copper like it isn't even on them, so you might as well not even focus on it, considering mants, I think, are going to show up not anytime soon. They're not going to show up anytime soon for us. I think your first mant scout, I'll check on the specifics, and I'll get back to you in the next episode. I think mants no sooner than, like, your 3rd year, I would think, with mants. They might come in the end of like the 2nd year, but anyways, I might be a little bit rusty. As I said, it's been a while since I've played the game, so a lot of my really specific boundaries on when this is going to happen versus when that is going to happen are probably going to be off by a little bit. An ambassador from the Rag Kingdom has arrived. All right, and so he's come bringing gifts of Scott Joplin and also Blind Boy Fuller, I suppose. Going to sit around singing Rag Mama Rag all day. And so we need to give her, I need to clear this place out first. Stu Smackledorf has decided that he wants to move in, but nope. Stu Smackledorf, get the hell out. And her name is Dindakenji. Alright, well that's kind of a strange name, difficult to say, but we'll go ahead and put Dindakenji down here so that the Rag Kingdom has an ambassador that's ready to hang out with us. I think she's not going to develop the need, yeah, requires nothing at this time, but later on she will develop the need for other stuff. I think what we need to focus on now the possibility of storage, I think, is actually jumping out at me. I'm going to take a look at our log stocks. Doesn't that totally sound like a restaurant where they would serve like awesome pizza? Log stocks. Like, yeah, dude, we're going down to log stocks for a pint and maybe like draw, I don't know, never mind, I'm not going to go there. God. Going down to log stocks, see if we can get ourselves the $1 pints. Let's see here. So that's on the way out there. I need to know, with 60 logs, this should be about ready to be cut soon. What are my loggers doing? One of them's sleeping. Should have enough copper bars down here to make that anvil. And so the next thing I'm going to go for is, in the previous episode I had talked about how you're going to kind of need to segment out your crafting a little bit when it comes to blacksmithing, because there simply aren't enough supplies to make everything work, and that is going to be an ugly solution. However, this is just a temporary base. I did want to touch on that. I wanted to touch base with our base construction here and talk about what we were going to be doing in the future. This is all temporary. We're going to be building above the surface for our main city. For now, this is just kind of a repository for all the random crafting locations we're going to need to be at. And so after I do all the construction on the top side, I would presume that we're going to be at the point in the game where you're not going to want to see me play that much anymore anyways. And so what I'll do is I'll rebuild all of these above ground, and I'll probably cut it all out, to be honest, because it's a really long, boring process to do all this. And so what am I crafting? We've got a smelter right there. As I understand, I've got the copper ball peen hammer ready to go. We need 2 more copper bars to finish off the copper anvil. So that's going to be at least another couple minutes until that gets done. But once it is done, we're going to be able to make ourselves our first armory. And once the armory is down, let's see, how many suits? I need to do like a head count of how many suits of mail I can make, like right this second. We've got 277 ore, and so we can make about 25 25 bronze bars given what we have already. So I think, no, we can make 50 there, and then I think I'll have to take a look. 2 bronze bars, it's going to take you, oh, it takes 1 of each. Okay, so we can make about 50. So that puts us in a way better spot. So I think with 50 bars, we should be able to make at least 2 partial suits of mail for our guards, so that at least they don't get punched in the throat. The first thing that I am going to try and do, 100%, the first thing that I'm going to try and align myself with is the possibility of getting a bronze chest piece for this guy right here. I don't know his name. Napopo, who I haven't renamed as of yet. Sorry, guys. I keep forgetting to name things. I'll name him after this episode. I swear and I promise. And if I don't, you guys can just, like, kick me in the nuts and Photoshop my face onto people wearing dresses or whatever it is you feel like doing out there on the internet. We've got this merchant here. And I do think this merchant is probably going to be... I don't have a whole lot to sell to her. That's one of my concerns right now. Let me go through my... We can sell goblin skulls. That's kind of a morbid thing to sell to somebody, but I guess whatever gets you a little bit of cash at the end of the day. I'll probably try and trade out some cotton seeds for some food. So let's have a look and see if she's got any victuals. She has some things here, although not in any sort of supply that looks like it might be the alpacas or something that I would be interested in purchasing, although I don't think we're going to have the money for that right now. Might be worth it to get somebody going on some craftables here, but I don't know if I have any birch logs. So let me spin on through my stockpile menu and see what kind of logs I have. I've got pine and orange. I don't have any birch right now. A little disappointing, but that's easy to handle. So we'll go to our agricultural menu here, and we will fell some of these birch trees over here on the side. Just, I think everything on the cap of this hill would be enough to get us enough birch to work into the future. And so there it is. We're going to use the birch. Birch is the most valuable wooden material in the game, and so if you're looking to craft anything that's going to be sold, you probably want to make it out of birch. Additionally, if you're trying to boost up your kingdom worth and you want to outfit, for example, in our dining hall, our great hall, all of our tables in here will be birch in the future, and all of our chairs will be birch because they get their value tripled, and so that's going to allow us to get better amounts of nomads in the future. However, for right now, I think we're going to back off that proclamation. Still a little bit confused as to what all of my... Okay, so one of my wood choppers is right there. The other... Napopo was a miner, so where is my second chopper here. Farmer, builder, woodcutter. So tree plant is right there. But tree plant is not wielding an axe or anything of that nature, which makes me interested as to what he might be doing. We'll keep an eye on him. We will keep a close eye on, what's his name? Tree plant? I mean, I keep an eye on anybody named Tree Plant simply because that name is sort of suspect to me. Maybe he's just recovering from our last battle. I don't know. We had a rough run in the last couple episodes, and so now that things have gotten real up in Nompton, I think we're going to be all right. So we're getting down to chopping down some trees. Hopefully none of them have been spiked by evil goblins hiding out in the distance. If you don't know what spiking is, it's where people put these big metal rods in trees, and it tries to kill lumberjacks. That's basically the goal, is that when a saw hits at the sawmill, when the big bandsaw hits the spike, it'll flip off of the little rail and it'll take somebody out. I've seen people. I have a friend right now, or at least I have a colleague, who is a giant denier and says that that doesn't happen. He actually says that spiking logs does not work, but my uncle is a lumberjack, and just recently they had somebody get pretty badly wounded by a spiked tree. And so I will say, and this was actually their logging company, everything is renewable. They actually use renewable plots that they rotate so that it's ecologically friendly, at least better than doing it the other way. Can't complain if you're going to use wood products, but anyways, what I will say is that don't be a denier. It does actually hurt people. So anyways, hanging out right here as I get off my pedestal. Hopefully none of these are spiked by evil goblins hiding out in the darkness. And so once we get this all taken care of, I'm not sure what we're going to craft out of any of these materials. Obviously, I think we're going to try and make some trinkets that we can give to the trader right there, and maybe the odd endeavor to get ourselves maybe some alpacas or some llamas or something. Might be kind of nice considering we do have excess wheat right now. Let me take a look and see how our wheat stocks are doing as well. Go to the plant menu right here. It's evading me. Damn it. Anyways, I know it's down at the bottom of the list right here. I don't want to waste too much time like staring and trying to figure out where the hell it's at. Wheat, there it is, wheat straw. So we got 66 wheat straw. How much actual wheat grain do we have? So we have 40 grain. So not a whole lot, but then again, oh, never mind. I think that's after the crop has been hauled. So we may actually be eating up our wheat stocks as well. Just a little disappointing. I may make this field a little bit larger, in fact, so that I can actually completely and totally 100% say that all of our drinks are being provided by all of our wheat beer, basically our Heffies. Our Heffies are doing all the heavy lifting. I'm not a big Hefeweizen fan, weirdly enough. Not a big Hefeweizen fan. I've had a few Heffies that I like, but in general, if somebody tells me it's a wheat beer, I'm like, nah, not the biggest fan. I definitely prefer my drinks to be hoppy or malty. Now that we've gotten, it's not completely done. I am a little bit at a loss for what we should be working on right now. I do think it might be worthwhile, once they're done with the harvest and the planting over here, to put them to work jumping out to here and getting all of these oranges, because the next season's going to be fall. And so we want these to fruit one more time before we do anything else, as well as all these trees up here. I might actually set them to the endeavor of just grabbing all of this and just seeing how much food we can get stockpiled, which leads me to another interesting thing that we need to do, which is increasing our amount of storage space. So let's go to our storage menu, and I'm going to strongly suggest that we just put in a bunch of crates down here. Although I do think that it's probably going to be a better idea to do this in a little bit more efficient of a way. I would say a pine crate, just to make sure that we don't use up birch on this. And so there it is. Those 8 right there will keep somebody busy for a while. But that's going to expand. That's going to be 250 food right there that we can store just from those, not counting the extra spaces in this location. And so I think looking to our storage needs is probably a smart plan. I'll also say that now that our anvil is done, we want to stay on the money, and we're going to go to our armorer. And our armorer is going to be the first thing. In fact, I may take out this wall right here so that we can have everything in the same room. So let's go to our terrain menu, and we're going to wall this out. And I hope you guys have noticed, but I'm trying to keep this kind of a lax playthrough, just kind of trying to keep it really, really relaxed, because that's how I like to roll. I don't like to keep, if you're new to the Nerd Castle and you're seeing my Gnomoria series for the first time, I don't like to keep everything just like, we have to get this done right now, or otherwise the sky will fall, and that will be terrible, because it will turn everything blue, and I happen to like all of the other colors. And so I just don't like to keep things stressful. And so oftentimes what you will note, please tell me that's not a birch log that you're turning into, damn it, stop that, you morons. So we're gonna cancel, oh, it's already in motion. So what we need to do is it has to be pine logs. If we're gonna do that for our repetition, like, that's fine, but make sure that it's always pine logs. And I'm not so positive that it's actually flagging those as pine logs. If they're burning up birch, that's just an absolutely terrible endeavor for them to be going after. That's something that's tremendously wasteful, and it means that I'm going to have to set up a sustainable birch source a lot earlier than I would have to otherwise. They're over here fighting. Let's take a look at Smash Nasty and see what her stats are doing right now. She's got her fighting at 36, which is very, very good. Her dodge is at 22. That's alright. Her armor use not going up so rapidly. We'll also take a look at Napopo and figure out what he's doing. He's got 29 and 22, so he's looking pretty good right now. Not bad. Not bad at all. Cotton is now being hauled down below. And as we stare over here, I can't guarantee what is that? A bear has been spotted. So no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to hold back. The bear hopefully will wander off in some other direction. Fist fighting a bear, while tremendously manly, it might seem like it might be one of those sports that Theodore Roosevelt or men from the past century would take part in. But bear wrestling, heavily, it's not condoned here in Nompton. It's one of those things that shortens your life expectancy, and while making you way, way manlier and way more badass, it's definitely a good way to garner some respect from the neighboring kingdoms and just be like, listen, I heard that they wrestle bears over here. It's all kinds of nasty. Nothing at this time. Alright, I'm kind of keeping an eye on this ambassador to make sure. I want to see. Oh good, we've already got crates down. They're building those a lot more rapidly than I had expected, so I'm happy about that. Back in the day, you used to have to carve planks from one of these other... They didn't have a sawmill in the game yet, and so building anything with wood just took forever back in the day. Now that you have a sawmill, it's not so bad. But I will recall to the days where building a bunch of crates was one of those things where it was like, alright, if you're doing an LP, let me turn the episode off now, because these crates are never going to get done. Once they get done building those crates, we should be able... Oh, our armor is already in place. And so what I'd like to do now, the big thing that we need to jump on is let's get bronze bars going. And so I'm going to have them do, why are copper bars repeating right now? We are going to stop that right this second. And we are just going to repeat copper bars from here on out. And so as the copper bars go, I'm going to keep an eye on the amount of copper bars that we have. And we're going to jump in between. So the big thing that we're trying to avoid right here is overtasking ourselves. And so if I tell him to take the bars and also turn them into armor plates right now, it's going to cause a problem for us in that he's going to be jumping in between the two jobs. Instead, what I'd like to do is get a stack of like 50 bars over here, and then just come over here and be like, you know what, make us bronze armor. Make us 2 bronze chests, make us 2 bronze helmets, and they'll just whip those out super quickly, because here at the Nerd Castle, whipping everything out is what we try to do with some sort of efficiency, because we like to accumulate those class 2 felonies. They're still throwing fisticuffs over here. Everybody should be going to sleep pretty soon. And yeah, I am right on that accord. I could have saw that. I don't know if that was one of those things that psychologically I saw that out of the corner of my eye, and it was sort of predetermined in that sense that I was going to talk about it, or if I actually came down here and checked it. Basically, I'm confused as to whether my innate knowledge of the game was me being like, yeah, they're going to go to sleep now, or if I saw that out of the corner of my eye, my brain just logged it for later. One of those weird things you don't think about. I'd watched a lecture a long time ago by... oh, I don't know, some kind of determinist. I don't remember what his name was. I don't think it was Daniel Dennett. I think it was somebody else talking about kind of the misconception of human perception and the human perception of self and how your brain actually makes decisions several seconds before you actually realize you've made the decision. They've run cognitive tests and realized that there's like a reptilian part of your brain that makes a decision before you're even aware of the fact that you're making a decision in the first place, which is kind of an interesting ground to stand on. But anyways, kind of ties into what I was talking about right there, although only in sort of a loose sense. And there it is. And so now, as you can see, the floor of our food storage is nicely sort of cleaned up at this point. It's much more organized, which means that we're not wasting space. Like, things aren't going to lay out in the fields anymore until they... I don't think rotting has been added to the game just yet. It may have. You guys can enlighten me if rotting has been added to the game. I know that was one of those big things that they were always wanting to implement, but had never gotten around to. So I'm going to go after these orange trees first. And all the fields have been planted, so that seems like a good thing to do. I will also fell these entire things manually right here because I can't guarantee that they're ever going to get back to it. I will freely admit that they might be crafting storage at the moment. No, they're not crafting storage. So the other thing we're going to need is, I'm going to queue this up. I know it's not going to get done for a while, but we need to build, what am I doing here? We need to build storage, and we need to build barrels down in here so that we can store some of our beer. And so I actually messed that up one more time. We want these to be pine barrels. And so storage, we will build barrels, and pine barrels are going to be what we're going to go after now. And so there it is. We'll put in like 7 pine barrels, and that's just going to hold us for the moment. Later on, we'll move all these crates around. We'll undesignate all this space. We should be able to move things easily in between localities once we get up above ground. But for now, I don't think building above ground is going to be anything that I'm even going to remotely think about until we have every single one of our city guards in full bronze, and probably with full bronze weapons, to be honest. I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of ranged weapons in the early game. I know a couple people had requested to be ranged gnomes. Sorry, I'm not going to be tinkering in the early game. Not at least until we're up to the iron or steel age. I think with bronze, I'm going to focus mostly on sword and board gnomes, or hammer and board gnomes if I didn't want to be segregationalist about the whole thing and be like, no. So anyways, I am going to try and match the weapons to the gnome that uses them best, but for now, I don't know. I just don't know. I think we're also at the point where we can start making real beds. That's the other thing that I would start considering right now. And so the first building that I may actually build might be a dormitory. I don't know. I think I'll probably start getting rid of this right here, and that's what we'll think about, is maybe doing a dormitory in the next episode where people can sleep, and also where people, just kind of a general community flop house, I suppose. Now, if you really want to get things done quickly, what I would recommend is that you dig ramps down if you're trying to terraform. This would be my first recommendation, is to go like this. And it'll convert all of these to ramps. Oh, never mind. We have to cancel that. So we have to get all of the harvestables. You go up by... Hey, stop that. Let me cancel you. There we go. My selection is lackluster. It's definitely not shiny right now. It's less than shining. And so we'll get rid of those jobs. And what we need to do first is we need to forage all of this cotton out. If we don't forage this cotton out, it's going to become kind of a spur on our heel later. I had one of those when I was a kid. It's called an ankle spur. And it's where, when you're growing up, your heel bone has kind of these fiber... they're almost like little hairs of bone that stick out, and they cause you to be incredibly, incredibly sensitive to walking. When I was a little kid, I don't know how often it happens to kids, but it happens when you get your growth spurt and your bones are growing, and you get these little hairs that just kind of are made out of bone that are kind of sticking out from your main bone. And so on your heel, you get them, and it's called an ankle spur or a heel spur. I had one when I was growing up, or I had a lot of them, and it made it incredibly painful to like walk or do anything else, which I think is probably one of the reasons that I stopped being... I was a big athletic kid when I was growing up, and I think that's one of the reasons I stopped being athletic, really, and kind of playing sports, is because it was physically painful for me to do anything involving my feet. And so you have that probably to thank now, my malformation to thank for me being on YouTube and playing video games now, because that's just the way things happen. They hurt like hell, though. They hurt a lot. I had to do like these crazy stretches and things every day to make sure that they didn't hurt. And the stretches only partially worked. It took a couple months for the stretches to start working, and even then my heels were sore all of the time growing up, which left me kind of chair-bound a lot of the time. I really kind of preferred... I was still physically active. Like, I could still skateboard because all of that is done on the balls of your feet. And so really I kind of move over to skateboarding from normal, let's see here, activities. So now we can do the ramp down. And we're just going to go like this. We're going to say, all of you, ramp down. And what that's going to do is it's going to create this giant stack of ramps that we can just destroy later. And it'll make this job much quicker than it would normally be. And so our miners should get to work doing that. Drink's still markedly low for where we are right now. Big stack of wheat beer right there. Still keeping an eye on the wheat stocks, because when they run out, we are going to have kind of a crisis on our hands. 25 grain remaining. I may use some of the surplus oranges and things that we're crafting right now, or that we're harvesting out of all these locations. Some of these surplus oranges I might use to ensure that we have a supply later on. I don't know if we have a lot of clippings right now for orange trees. A merchant from the Misty Bread has arrived. Okay. Well, I think the Misty Bread was a mining colony, as I recall. Let's go ahead and take a look at our diplomacy. A mining colony. So yeah, had we anything to trade, we might be able to get ourselves a pretty cool selection of ore. However, seeing as we don't have any of that, I might take the wood carver and we'll just make... Well, we have no pine planks. How disappointing. We'll go ahead and craft those up to 15 as well for when the other jobs are done. And then what I would say is as soon as we've got birch planks made, we'll start making some puzzle boxes and things that we can trade out. So anyways, my name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here in the Nerd Castle for another episode in Nompton. Kicking it with the Gnome homies. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hi, do everybody, and I'll see you there.